I know for a lot of people, they've got it made when it comes to hunting. So they've got comfy hunting spots and they're all set up well. And I don't typically get to do that. Typically, I have to make what I have work, and I don't have property that I personally own. And so I might just end up being in a snowbank like what I'm in right now. It's a little more frequent than I would like to admit. Let's see. So having a tripod that I can get comfortable on in weird positions is very important to me. Again, I know how to set this up in more comfortable ways, but when you're hunting and you have a split second shot, or you've already got the legs extended to a certain height, you have snowbanks or things to work around, or you need to stay low to the ground and hide. Sometimes you don't get to sit and squat in position. It's more comfortable. Sometimes you just set it up and then you unlatch the neck and you got to go for it. That right there is one of the more compromising positions for a tripod because the legs are sprawled out quite a bit. I'm putting body weight into it until it stops, and then I'm going to loosen up the neck and control my rifle as much as I can. One thing that really helps a lot is this Alacritas Innovations thumb rest. I added this to my HB Industries CZ457 chassis, and this has made a big difference just for a consistent thumb rest. I like it quite a bit, and I find it to be very, very useful. Okay, it's really, really windy. It's been between 20 and 30 in the gusts for wind, and it's already about 5 degrees out, so that's pretty cold. And that brings the wind chill down very, very low. I'm not going to be filming out here long because that camera won't last more than a couple minutes from a full battery charge down to 0. What I'm going to do is use this Ink Irma inside of the LuxGun RFM-01. This is a really cool accessory offered by LuxGun. This will hold your rangefinders that don't have a foot or like an Arca pattern on the bottom or a 1/4 inch adapter. This one doesn't, but the LuxGun Hunt is a really, the Ink Irma rangefinder is a really neat rangefinder, and I'm liking it a lot. I like the reticle and some of the features inside. I like it enough that I'm willing to use a module like this to attach it into an Arca footprint so that I can range find and use it around from day to day. So small footprint for the LuxGun device here, small footprint for the Ink Irma, and I like them on this smaller footprint size tripod that is easy to carry around, especially when I'm already trudging through difficult snow and conditions like what I'm dealing with today. I think that's exactly right. I'm going to take my glasses off. I know the distances that I'm laser range finding. I'm actually testing out the laser range finder just to see how consistent it is. And So I have previously checked this area because I use it a lot. Excellent. It's exactly 100 meters, which is what this range is. I'm going to switch units. Switch over to yards. 109 yards. It's exactly on. So that's great to see that it can handle the closer ranges and it's going to be accurate. And I've tested out now at the further ranges and I'm seeing good numbers there too. Now I'm going to go ahead and take that off with a quick detach, which I appreciate so much on this tripod. I'm going to throw my 300 blackout on here, even though it's crazy cold. And I'm going to try to shoot some at 110 and see what I can get with those 220 grain subsonics. I'm going to try to do this without sunglasses on or mask or anything. I don't have a lot of time before my camera dies. So I'm going to put the microphone down, turn that off, and just try to schwack these targets. You should be able to hear it. Again, it's only at 110 yards, but I am using subsonics. It's very, very windy, incredibly windy out there. It's super cold. I think it's 20 below with the wind chill right now, if not colder than that. We'll see what happens. Sometimes bullets get kind of weird when it's this cold, but these are close enough targets. It should be fine. So it's really, really cold. And one thing I noticed that happened there is I didn't have it fully locked down, or it wasn't sitting there perfectly. I think that was user error. Still made my impact, but it just slid on me a little bit. So when it's really cold, you can't quite feel everything. You can't quite feel how well it's locked in there or not. But I'm going to try again and see if it stays this time. Just shooting 300 blackout, so it should be fine. Go for the 4-incher. It's pretty windy. We'll see what happens. Ah, that's a miss. One more. That's an impact. So that used 60% of my battery to film like 2 minutes. That's concerning. I think at 220, let me think about this. Yeah, I think I know the ballpark, what my data is for this round. I'm using some Freedom Munitions 220 grain subsonics, some leftovers that I had. They're not the best, but they do suppress well. So I'm going to try to just shoot this steel at 220 yards from right here. I may throw it on the laser rangefinder too, just to confirm that, but I think it's 220 from right where I'm standing. And we'll see how the tripod responds once again in a different position. There it is. All right, well that wasn't too terrible. I could see my misses actually in the air, which is kind of cool. And then by the time it would poof in the snow down there, I already kind of knew which direction it was going. It's a pretty slow round, suppresses really good, like I said. Comfortable behind the tripod. It's a totally stable tripod. It's not going to be in the same category as one of those big 40 millimeter leg tripods. But again, you're looking at substantially less weight. There's only 2 barrels or twisters on it to extend leg portions. So technically you get 3 leg portions of high quality carbon fiber, some really strong barrels on these with the rubber. You do get the neoprene, which I, you know, in conditions like today, I have to have it. I absolutely do. This is actually really cold, and this is much more comfortable. It's safer on my hands. Even just moving it around in these temperatures, just any exposed skin is really painful. So that's huge for me in the hunting I'm doing. I'm actually going to go rabbit hunting in like 10 minutes. Right before sundown. I'm going to go look for some rabbits. I know there's some over there, and I'm going to bring this with me. And I'm going to bring this rifle with me. I really, really like using this setup. It's pretty neat. It's kind of like shooting a 22. It's actually, I would say, just as quiet as shooting a 22, but I can shoot a bigger bullet. And so if I wanted to take a little bit bigger game or woodchucks or something like that, this is a nice dispatcher for it. And carrying around this thing is so much better than trying to haul around, you know, like a twice the size and twice the weight tripod. I just don't need it. I don't need the big heavy tripod for hunting in general. Most of the time, I'm going to try to get into position as comfortably as I can and take an ethical shot. If I'm going ultra long range for shots, I'm usually trying to get to the prone anyways, trying to get up on top of a hill and look down on something. If I have to, though, I do think I'll be pretty comfortable making kill shots with the setups that you've seen so far in the video on even small game, which is the majority of my hunting. But I wouldn't be opposed to taking this deer hunting at all, especially the fact that it fits so slim and it fits into my backpack or on the exterior of my backpack really, really well. In fact, I should show you that. All right, so I kid you not, I ran all my ammo out in that magazine on those targets at 220, and I was getting ready to come over here and film the next part and charge up my camera because it's halfway dead. And as I was moving stuff over a piece at a time, I realized I saw something moving out there, and it was a big owl, it was a big Canadian owl out there, and he was swooping down by the pines and by the target bay. I couldn't quite tell what he was doing. I grabbed my little Inkerma 1200 6X rangefinder inside of the LuxGun RFM mount, and I threw it up really quick on here to try to get an idea of what it was doing out there. And at 232 yards up on the hill, there was a rabbit, and he was hiding around up there, and the owl eventually took off. I thought I was just going to film him catching the rabbit, but he took off. And those things are huge, by the way. If you've never seen a Canadian owl, they are really big. Anyways, caught my attention, saw the rabbit up there. Couldn't tell what it was until I put up the 6X, and 6X was easily enough to identify what it was. And when I saw it sitting up there, it was staying put, and I've got the ability to hunt here as long as shots are ethical and safe. And I had just got that data. I had just got it down to the 4-inch target out there. I was very confident with my subsonic, so I gave it another 10th because of the extra 10 yards. Gave it another 10th, and check this out. I think this might be one of the best shots I've ever made on an old rabbit. That right there is through the brain, through the eyes. He was sitting broadside to me, and I almost can't believe that I got him through the eyeballs. That's what I was aiming for. I was going for a brain shot, and it's maybe a quarter or an inch further forward than I wanted, but I wanted just at the stem of the brain. But that was an awesome kill, and I did it off of the LuxGun hunt. And so really, really happy with that. I'm going to actually skin this guy up and take him home. Is it a guy? Yeah, it is a guy. I take this guy home, skin him up, and I'll eat the meat for sure, or I'm going to give it to a friend who was making a rabbit stew he was telling me about. Maybe he'll take that off me. But I'm going to take that fur and try to turn it into the first glove, and then or a mitten rather, and then I'll get another one of these and turn that into another mitten. It's actually a pretty nice fur. This is a good February fur for rabbits, and they make really nice mittens. He's still clean, so I got to do my best to keep him that way and go process this. But you know what? The LuxGun hunt is awesome. It was very lightweight. It was easy to run with through the snow, and it's kind of deep. It's like 24 inches deep over there, so it's up past my knees. Boots are full of snow. But anyways, super happy with it. Great combination. Very, very happy to have the rangefinder module there to attach that Inkerma 1200 into. I got a good distance on it. Data was right there. Zero Tech was easy to use. I just love that 4-24 trace advance. Awesome, good clear glass. And then, of course, I needed a steady tripod. And it was steady enough to get probably the best kill shot I've ever had on a rabbit, including close shots with 22s. I don't think I've ever had such a good kill. Really sweet. That was fun. All right, I'm done nerding out over that. That's the closest I'll ever get to being a sniper. That was pretty cool. I don't usually get to make kill shots with exact precision like that. I'm so happy. And it was quick death. You know, I'm all about the ethical kill. So this is the backpack I most often use when I'm hunting. And this tripod fits in the side satchel real well. Pull that off. Okay, so it sits in there real well. You can tighten and loosen these to make it more comfortable. And then when I have my regular gear in here, it sits really nice, but it's not hard for me to get quick access to. And then I have my rifle scabbard internally right here, so I can pull the rifle out, pull the tripod out. I can just go straight to a sitting position if that's most stable, which it almost would have been an option over there if I didn't already have the legs extended. I could have sat down and taken a shot, but I took a standing shot, and it was because the legs were already extended, and that's what was available to me. I didn't want to miss the moment. So anyways, you could just take it out that way and run with it really quick. You could actually extend the legs a little bit and tighten it down and not have it in the bottle holder. Sometimes I've done that if I know that I'm going to have it at the next leg angulature. Rather than a standing position, I have it at the next one down. Sometimes if I know I'm going to be in that sitting or kneeling position, I'll have it just hanging off the side with a slight extension to it. And yeah, it doesn't sit too tall. It's not uncomfortable. It doesn't clank around against things with this backpack. And it's so thin, the profile's so thin that it actually works. My other tripods are a bit too fat most of the time, especially those 40 millimeters, but this one fits in there really nice, and it's easy to move in and out of that sleeve. Targets at 100 and 220. It's actually 110 and 220 from where I'm standing right now, and I can gauge both those from the place I'm at safely, so I'm going to do that. I have my Pete's Pillars set up here with the CZ457. I have that Anaco X on the end. I have the Zero Tech. This is their newest Trace Advance 5-30, and anything else I need to mention? Anyways, I'm going to throw that up on here. This is my heaviest 22. If this tripod can do well with my heaviest 22, then it's doing just fine. So that's one test I need to see how it does with a little bit of vibration and just comfort behind that, as well as strength of the head itself and the latch. I'm going to transition between those 110 and 220 yard targets. So that's why I've got good glass and a good barrel on here. I want to see what sound suppression is like, point of impact change. The wind is taming out a little bit. It's mostly coming from the north. It is sub-zero right now. It's very, very cold. So the ammo is already going to be a little slower than normal. Let's go ahead and give that a try and see what the sound is actually like. I'm going to turn my microphone off so you can hear the actual raw audio. Super quiet, very stable. Can is still tight, looks good. Let's switch over to 220. Those are all hits. Switch back to 110. That's just super cold. I need to run inside. I think I'll maybe try the Christmas tree one time before I run inside, but I'm really happy with each part playing its role here. No issues, no concerns. with the tripod or the can, the optic, the gun, everything's doing what it's supposed to. The most wacky thing when it's this cold is the ammo. Let me start off by telling you what I like about this rifle, why I set it up the way that I did, the purposes that I have for it, and why I think it's a good fit for the LuxGun Hunt tripod. These two just pair well together. First of all, on top, you see the Zeiss 4-25. I've run this for a couple years. I've had it on Magnums, I've had it on Springers, I've had it on just about everything, and very often it ends up back on this CZ457 right here in front of you. I do have a 419 rail on here. This one happens to be a 50 MOA rail, so that's a nice complementary combo. You can go pretty far with this, quite a bit of internal elevation, good reticle. Moving down from there, yes, I have the 50 MOA sitting on a CZ457 action. And inside of that action, I have this stainless steel 18-inch threaded barrel. This happens to be from Jarvis Barrels, and this is their match chamber, and I'm really enjoying this one. This one has shot very, very well. I do already have a review out about most of these things, including that barrel. Highly recommended, but this isn't as long or as thick as some of the other options I have out there. A couple reasons for that. I'm in an HB Industries chassis, and I do have the Anarchy Outdoors Penguin grip, actually. This one is a Penguin grip, huge fan of that. I do have links below for Anarchy and a couple other things here, so check those out if you like these grips. I love them. They're on my personal rifles for that reason. And then I have the Fab Defense as well as the Matador Arms side folder. And thank you to Fab Defense. They've been an awesome supporter of the channel. These stocks, this is the Wraps C for carbine, and it's adjustable for length of pull as well as a couple other features here, and cheek lift as well, which kind of matters once you get into these types of rifles where the scope is up a bit higher. The spring inside is a Pete's Pillars. That's an 8-ounce spring, highly recommended. Really nice crisp trigger pull at this point. Sunway Photo tripod underneath, and lastly, back up to the front, I guess, this is the Anechoic. This is their Anecho X 22 can, and I'm very, very happy with the performance of this rifle in hunting, especially. Hunting for me looks like small game most of the time with something like this, maybe up to a coyote if it's really close. Where I'm at right now, there's a coyote trail that runs right next to me. I have a really good chance of smoking a coyote with this at close range and getting, you know, a quick kill shot, headshot. I probably would use this up to that amount as long as I can take an ethical shot. So hunting wise, this is a great setup. Being able to make this compact with Matador Arms side folder. I have that Wrap C stock. I can take the can off. The optic is not overly big. It's not overly tall. And so it all fits down in my backpack really well with a small footprint, and I can carry it in my car with me or my vehicle so that I don't have a lot of space taken up with a regular long rifle case. And some of my other 22s have like 24 or 26-inch barrels. It's just really long and heavy for the contour to be hauling around in the woods. So I like this setup. I've set it up mostly towards hunting, but I've also gamed with it. I've done NRL 22, I've scored very high with this exact setup right here, minus the can. I have not done a comp with this can yet on this setup, but it scores well, it does well. I think I shoot it pretty reasonably considering it's such a light rifle compared to my other rifles. That being said, I wanted to pair it with a tripod that wasn't ultra heavy, but could get pretty tall. I'm 6'5", and I need some extra length. I need the ability for standing shots to get comfortable behind it. Sometimes the terrain that I'm on is not perfectly flat. Minnesota isn't as mountainous as other places, but it's plenty hilly. And rarely when I'm hunting do I have a perfectly level shot like where I'm at right now. Most of the time, the legs need to be set up and arranged in a different way where there's a little bit of a compromise to the angle, or I need to extend one leg longer than the other, or I even have to change the angulature of the legs. And so looking at the LuxGun Hunt, I asked my friend to send this out who is running LuxGun. He's got lots of other stuff on his website, but this particularly is set up well for somebody who wants to do a little bit of both, but maybe primarily focuses on hunting and wants a lighter weight setup. They don't need the big 40mm legs. They don't even want to carry that around in the woods with them, hiking the mountains or in the plains. They just want a lighter weight setup that's still rigid, carbon fiber, and has lots of accessories. And I think this setup for me makes a huge amount of sense, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. All right, just for starters, let's start with the top. You can see that I'm clamped in with the LuxGun rifle clamp. This will fit, let's see, the measurements is on here, 1 to 3.9 inches is what it says it can clamp. It's got excellent cranking and clamping strength. It's very level. It's got this gummy texture inside, which is worth showing you. I'm going to take the CZ out of there. So inside, there's a gummy rubbery texture here and on the side walls, so it's not going to mar up or damage finishes. It's not going to crush your wood stock like a piece of aluminum or something would be way too much tension by itself. So you need some sort of medium in between to protect your finishes and actually just the integrity of the stock overall. This has a little bit more give, and so that's nice. And then a skid plate on the bottom. I watched a guy shoot on a real old tripod once that had a type of clamp from another brand, and he actually skid up the bottom of his wood stock because there wasn't something there to protect it very well anymore. And this one is really well embedded, and I've never seen these fail. Actually, I understand how these are attached and how it's made, and I don't think these are going to fail, even in cold weather or in really hot weather. They seem like they'll hold up to recoil, be very reasonable for whatever size and weight rifle. I've actually run something like this with a 300 PRC and quite a bit of recoil, and it didn't move those plates at all. Those held on really well, and the tension was plenty sufficient. It held that big heavy rifle in here with so much recoil, still stayed put. So I'm pretty happy with it. A couple accessories on this clamp. This has a Picatinny piece on this side, so if you have some sort of accessory like maybe a Kestrel or something that you want to find a way to clamp on there, I've seen people use different types of anemometers or wind meters on things like that. Whatever your creativity allows for, there's an idea right there. A big 3-part dial, so it's not a tiny one or a 2-piece. Some of those that are just a blade that you have to crank onto are a little slower. This is actually a little faster. So it's kind of like, kind of feels a little bit more like a mariner's wheel. It's just bigger, has some texture to it, but the finish is nice. It looks like it actually matches. It's got some brass, a brass spacer in here for this. Kind of matches the rest of the design and the aesthetic. So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and release that and show you underneath. You do have some pins here, and I should probably tighten that one down. You have some pins here, and as well you can take this off. There is an ability to get a higher base that will fit this. You're probably not gonna run into issues with this base height ever. This is actually my preferred base height when it comes to this, but if you needed to take it out, you do have those right there underneath, and you can take it off, switch things out. This retains, these little pins right here help retain it inside of your mount. In a worst case scenario where you didn't do your due diligence to tighten it down and it slipped a little bit, that's going to be on you, but you have those pins there to keep it in place and allow it to not just rock right off of the mount or slide out under pressure. These by themselves I've used quite a bit for actually about 2 years now, and I think these are a really good value, like probably one of the best values on the market considering how strong these are, well built, and the accessories. There's just a lot more for features on these than you're going to find in other ones, and I haven't found a rifle yet that could not sit inside of these saddles. They're very, very well made and versatile. All right, now I want to talk about the actual Arca clamp itself. This is kind of unique. It's got some improvements on it from other designs that I've seen. I like this. Starting off on this end, you can see that it does have a bubble level. That's convenient because you want this piece to be level. The bottom half is less important than the top half is. The part that connects to your gun, you want to keep it level, so it's nice that it's built in, and I can actually see that when I'm running my gun. You do have access to visibly check that. Go ahead and clamp this down for a second. On this side, you have 2 different features that are going to help secure things. This is for setting the depth that you're going to need for your Arca plate. Not all Arca plates are compatible. Not all Arca plates are exactly the same size, but most of them are close nowadays. I think the machining and tolerances are getting better in most companies. I run a lot of Sunway Photo Arca plates. Those work well, but I found that the LuxGun specific plates fit perfectly in here, so you can get close with the tolerances. You'll get it just about tight, and then you can run the thumb snap here, and this is going to snap it into place. I'll show you that in just a second. Something I really appreciate about this particular design is having a latch for securing it, and the latch has a spring tension release, so I can quickly with one hand grab that and release this, but it's not going to on its own. So right now, unless I press that spring, there is a detent that is filled and it cannot release. It's mechanically stuck like that unless I release that. One of the reasons that matters is I put in spotting scopes and things like that into mounts like this all the time. They're thousands of dollars, and I would not want to risk that with something that doesn't actually secure really well. So this allows for a QD application. It's essentially a very, very fast application, especially if you run it with the LuxGun plates that were inside of the bag. I'll show you more of that in a second. They're gonna fit really well, and I'm actually probably gonna switch one of my Arca plates on another rifle to the LuxGun plate to fit with this because I think it matches up and meets perfectly. I find their tolerances to work with almost all other brands, but sometimes it's other brands that might not have as good of machining where I find those plates might not fit in here perfectly every time, but very, very rarely is that gonna happen. It's usually with the really cheap Chinese products that are just mass produced and not made with good specification. Most of your high quality parts are gonna fit in here with no problems at all. Ironically, I did not look hard enough in the bag the first time. There is a riser mount provided in here, which is compatible with the bottom. So if you need a higher riser mount, which I kind of doubt, but you might, if you need a higher riser mount, you can throw this one in. So that's another added value that's already included with this. I think it's an awesome deal. And you can see in the middle, there's also a 3/8 if you wanted to direct mount this to another kind of stand or tripod. Now getting into attachments, I should probably mention some of the other things that come inside of the LuxGun bag. You do get extra hardware and tools, which are gonna help this be compatible with everything. I think it's awesome that this much is included in there. Even if you lost something, there's just something extra to get in your package. This would be the spike feet. The spike feet are easy to attach or detach. I have rubber feet on right now, but it's winter. It's very icy out, and these spike feet with the rubber grommets are probably a good idea. I might actually switch over to these later. Then you have a Picatinny 1913 compatible adapter to Arca. And this also has a 1/4 inch socket on the bottom. This is a pretty cool piece. I've actually run these right on my rifles before if I just needed to quickly attach this to a Picatinny so that I could attach a rifle to an Arca rail. Let me open this up and show you what I'm talking about. So what I'll do is I'll put the plate in, I'll get it pretty close with the thumb screw, and then I'll use the QD to snap it in. And now this is super tight, very well made. This is a helpful tool to have. And actually, if you can see on the side, it does have 2 tensioning Allens right there. That's awesome. So it's gonna be really, really well attached, and it has a Picatinny stopper on top to fit into your Picatinny groove on your 1913 rail. So this helps you adapt a rifle or maybe even a spotting scope that has a Picatinny portion on the bottom. And I really like this for those spotting scopes that have Picatinny because I'd prefer to lock it into Arca almost every time. And lastly, LuxGun threw in an M-LOK compatible Arca Swiss plate for your rifle or accessory that accepts M-LOK, and that'll help you get locked in as well. I do plan on using this on one of my other rifles. Really a nice fit, very tight, and it's a strong piece. This is a good design, but it's also lightweight. It has some relief cuts in here for weight. I kind of like this design, and I've run these plates before, and the hardware has held up. They haven't loosened out. It's actually pretty good quality and grade of hardware, and that's just thrown in. I feel like this is a lot of freebies that you're not gonna get this with other tripods, quite frankly. Personally, I like the single throw design. I think there's a lot of advantages to this when it comes to hunting. I actually don't like using a traditional style tripod head when it comes to hunting. I prefer these 100% of the time. And that's because I shoot in areas where I need to be a little bit more dynamic, and I need to be able to quickly adjust things, and I need a good locking tension. This is adjustable from the top. If this were to ever loosen up on the ball at all, you could lock that down, tighten it down. Same thing with the top of the actual Arca clamp. So this seems to be the way to go when it comes to hunting. I don't know anybody who doesn't appreciate these. I just prefer this overall, and I'm glad to see that even the aesthetic matches going down. That's kind of cool. And I'm glad to see you went this route in designing this tripod. I think this makes the most sense, especially for something called the LuxGun Hunt. This is a great combination. There is an accessory socket right here, as well as another on this side. That might not be a huge deal to you right now, but if you get into tripods, the more accessories you can get, the better, because sometimes you might use it for video. You might want to throw a Kestrel in there. You might want to put an extended arm into this, or a light. There's just so many different things I find these sockets are useful for, and I'm really happy to see you went with 1/4 inch on this. It's a very lightweight chassis for the top here with the aluminum, and this is going to be strong. I've never had these strip out. They've been pretty reliable for me over time. The legs, which have that kind of gold accent, if I want to call it gold, I suppose it's gold. those have 3 different positions, and this is a spring-loaded mechanism, which is nice. So it actually snaps back into place. I just barely put any pressure. It snaps back in on whatever position I'm in. When I'm especially seated, I like to use this lock right here, this angle. And sometimes I'll be in a place where I need to use more than 1 degree angle per leg. I have to change them around to fit the topography that I'm sitting on. And this is going to allow you to do that with each angle. One more, go all the way flat. You actually could almost kind of run this like a bipod off the ground. I have shot these off the flat ground before, as long as my pistol grip isn't too tall. You can actually run this really flat. And if you add this with something like the clamp, it gives you just a little bit more height, and that clamp will allow you to shoot this off the ground like a bipod with a tripod stability. You can see those snap back into place. Very convenient, high quality, good parts. All of the legs are adjustable. If you need them to be a little looser, a little tighter, you can adjust those. I'm in Minnesota and things get hot and then very, very cold here. Going back and forth between the two, most brands of everything, hardware backs out a little bit. I've rarely had that with this design and the manufacture of these. I think they're usually actually done really well. But if you did have an issue, you have the hardware, you have the tools included, and you can go ahead and tighten these up yourself. So obviously this tripod has a couple other extras on it. Like it has this neoprene cover right here. I know so many people who wouldn't even mention this, but this actually matters. It's an added value to the person buying it. For me, I pretty much demand these at this point. It's just too cold in Minnesota. Even holding onto the carbon fiber, sometimes even with gloves on, there's not enough temperature resistance that's going to go on. It might not be quite as cold as metal or aluminum, but having the neoprene cover is so much more temperature resistant. And then it's also some grip when it's wet or it's rainy out or the snow is melting. I just like having that on there. And hauling around a tripod, let's say you're in a hunt and it's fairly cold out, like right now it's sub-zero. If it's fairly cold out, and even if you have decent gloves on, when you're holding onto this for a while, a 10-minute setup for a shot is not uncommon. If you're trying to hunt something, you're trying to get positioned well, you're taking a distance shot, and holding on to something cold for 10 minutes does affect you. And when your hands start to hurt, if you have to take your gloves off, sometimes that happens when I'm positioning or I'm trying to clear brush, whatever it is, I want to have neoprene on there. So that might be a really small deal to other people. It's a big deal to me, and I pretty much demand to have some sort of leg cover. The neoprene is the best way to go. I'm not going to be able to film this in the spot I'm in right now, but this does get very, very tall, and I'm going to show you that right here with some B-roll. This thing extends out to be tall enough for me. That's not really that common. I'd say a lot of times when I get tripods in the mail, they're a touch short or sometimes even really short. When it comes to these ultralight style carbon fiber tripods, very often people aren't, or companies aren't willing to make them tall enough for people like me. They try to aim for the mid-market, or they kind of base them off of a sitting down position. And I like the versatility of having something that I can stand, sit, kneel, lay down, basically. This covers everything. And it's an extended leg portion, which means for rapid setup time, if I don't have time to set up these legs, I can just set out the legs. If I don't have, sorry, let me say that again. If I don't have time to actually hit the twisters and extend it out to a taller length, I can usually get by with just spreading these out to the initial angle and run it this way with my rifle on top and get comfortable actually over weeds, over brush, and snow, which is what I'm dealing with right now, snowbanks. I can usually just set it up like this, plop it down in the snow, get my rifle on there, and latch it in really quickly. So whether I have the clamp or this, nothing is really hindering me, and I can use it in each season, so I like that a lot. As I previously mentioned, the footprint on this is pretty favorable. I like the fact that this hunting tripod doesn't have really big, thick legs because I want it to be lightweight, and I also need a smaller footprint in the sense that I can slip it in on my backpack. I have sleeves, or sometimes I have web gear, and whether it's inside the bag or outside the bag, this will work for me. The length bit doesn't matter. That's fine. It'll basically just sit in my backpack sack or on the side satchel. It'll sit on that just fine. But if it's too wide, it basically doesn't fit, or it offsets with weight on the side of my backpack, can make things a little awkward. But this is lightweight, like extremely lightweight. And the only real factor I have to have for consideration is length, which for me is not an issue. It's actually a benefit. I like this. So when I throw it in the bag, if I want to carry it that way, there's actually room inside of the bag it comes with for quite a bit more. Here's the bag. I'll show you in a second what I'm talking about. It does come with an expandable neck strap or back strap, however you want to carry it, and a padded handhold right here. They're actually stitched in really well. Stitching is always good on the bags. And then you have your accessory compartment for extras you might want to throw in there. If you're going to use rubber feet or use the spike feet, you can throw those in there. Some extra Arca plates, hardware's tool. It's a really good idea. Maybe some ammo, lens cloth, whatever you need. This is a big enough compartment to do that. But I'll show you inside this case. Zippers are always real high quality in these bags too. It is a padded case, and I have a lot of extra space in here. I can actually fit the clamp and the tripod together, so I don't have to house them separately or find something to do with that clamp. They'll both fit in here, which is a design feature that's actually pretty important. Here's that. That's with the clamp installed. So you can think of plenty of other accessories or your own head that you would choose to put on here. It's going to fit that inside the bag for transport. One thing I like about this bag is it does have this clip on the end, so I can actually clip it onto my backpack and not lose it. It's not going to slide through. If I have a web slot for tripods, I can actually use the bag, and then inside the bag I already have my head loaded up for that clamp, so no matter what kind of rifle I'm running, it's ready to go. And because the zippers themselves are so fluid and smooth, it's not complicated at all to get this out and set it up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my rifle. I usually just leave my sling on all the time. Sometimes even in competition, I'll just leave it on there. And I'm already level because I have a level in the head of this. I made sure that was good to go on the surface I'm on. I can tell it's level. My actual indicator on the top is also level. If it wasn't, I just have one throw to go ahead and make that correction. And I'm really quite comfortable behind this rifle on this tripod. I feel like there's very little to no vibration I get off of rimfire, if I can notice anything at all. So this is totally capable for the small game hunting I'm doing, but I've also run this with center fire, and I'm not getting a huge amount of vibration or shaking, which would be the kind of the frustrating thing you get with sometimes old school tripods that aren't carbon fiber. They give you a lot more resonance, and these carbon fiber ones, you know, theoretically and in my experience, seem to absorb a little bit of that vibration, and the tendency is they just feel a little more solid. So there's the function of the head. Got lots of room to travel, and it's easy to lock down. Obviously, I've got mine set up the way I like to. If you're worried about running into the latch, just switch some of your controls to the other side, and it's not going to be in your way. Or you can even turn the entire tripod so that's no longer a hindrance on that side, and it will actually latch behind. I know a lot of people actually run this tripod or styles like this with the latch where they would actually actuate with their left hand, and they can move around and get a lot of angulature this way, or even up if you're going uphill. I prefer actually this way though. And that way I have a socket rear facing right here with a 1/4 inch, and I can run an accessory down here. If I want to have my phone connected, I can run a data sheet on my phone right in front of me, or a map. Sometimes I'll actually put in, like clip in, screw in a holder with a map of the hunting area in front of me. And on that map, I'll have distances and data recorded on a laminated sheet. So I know it's 200 yards to that tree, it's 300 yards to that rocky hill over there. And when I have all that stuff, it doesn't matter if it's raining or snowy or whatever, I can brush it off and I can see it right in front of me on my tripod, and it doesn't interfere, and I can get loaded up really quickly into my rifle, get my data, and take a shot. Now when it comes to competition, that may be a place I get some pushback because the legs are not 40 millimeter or larger. That tends to be the standard for competition style tripods. But if I am honest, most of the time in competition, when I have a tripod like this, it ends up being rear support. So if you're shooting off of, like, for example, cattle gate, you're shooting off a cattle gate and you're moving around and you're using tripod rear for support, which I only do sometimes. I've tried it out a handful of times in centerfire and rimfire. This would be very convenient because it's not a big fat tripod. It's easy to move around, and I can still get a huge stability factor on the rear of the rifle grabbing onto this, not to mention the neoprene portion, which could be really convenient. So I like this idea even for like competition light, your precision 22 matches or matches that are a little bit more open, free flowing, maybe not so strict. I like using it for that application. But yes, truthfully, this tripod would be something that I very often would have my binos on. I would be spotting off of this, and that's the next application I'm going to show you. I probably should say this just because people are going to be curious. Yes, you can be completely comfortable running this. I've run a mini fortune cookie on this type of setup many, many times, and I know for a fact that these heads are not too broad or too fat or too tall. They work really well with throwing just a bag on top. So if you're in NRL Hunter, or as I'm starting to hear more and more, NRL 22 Hunter competition style matches, yes, you can just throw a good Game Changer or mini pint, whatever you have. They're going to fit on this super well and very comfortably. And I actually found that this setup for NRL 22, when I'm allowed, this has been super cool to run a tripod like this with that head and a bag like this. It allows me to flow through an environment really quickly and stay pretty much stable, even with my ultralight rifle, competition ultralight rifle. I can still scan the field and move back and forth. It allows for lots of movement there, so I don't necessarily have to use the Arca or the clamp. I can actually just throw a bag on there. So versatility for the win. Now let's take a look at a binocular application. So for this, thank you to Sunway Photo for sending out their CC-09. It's a binocular holder. And thank you to Vanguard for sending out their ED Endeavors. These are some of my favorite lightweight binoculars. And in NRL Hunter, honestly, I could get away with an 8X. It's perfect for field of view and finding things. Let's see. So the way that this works is that clamp can pretty much work with all the binoculars I've ever owned. Maybe if you had 56 millimeter objectives, it would be pretty big on the barrel, but I think these would still work actually, now that I look at it. So I can clamp that in and I can run binos directly threaded in with this and then quickly get them off. I can sling them, run on my neck, or because it's on that QD, I can just open this up and slide them out and go to something else. If I need to go between binoculars and a rifle, and I have seen people before QD their binocular set in so it's stable, it's rigid, and then just open up on a tripod to get their rifle in right after that. So they use this for spotting, finding targets, and then they go back with their rifle and hit those targets. So there's an application I could see right there. These are particularly small, but sometimes small is good in competition. Takes up less space, it's lighter, not so cumbersome. I'm not going to show you on these because they're relatively small binoculars, but the Sunway Photo BA53 is a magnetic set for your phone, and all you would have to do is take the sticky side of this magnetic panel and attach that to your phone, and then you get this, which will fit around the ocular of one of the barrels, one of the lenses. So when that's magnetically attached to your phone, this is strong. It's going to hold the weight of your phones, like even my Pixel 8 XL, which is a pretty large phone. And so it'll attach to one side and your camera will be navigated to the other side, and you can film through your binoculars. This is actually pretty cool at competitions lately. I've actually seen people trying to set up stuff like this, and it ends up just being shaky with them holding their phone up to their binoculars during the match, trying to record for friends. This is a really, really simple way to set up recording through binoculars, and I actually find it to be pretty useful for content making. As a side note, if you are running a larger pair of binoculars with larger eyepieces, the BA53 is a good fit. And if you're running a little bit smaller, like these small Vanguard Endeavor EDs, I would go with the BA43. That's probably the right size for that. And I'll try to show that more in the future if I get a chance. Next, another accessory from LuxGun is this laser rangefinder holder and clamp. This is set up kind of like the rifle clamp. Obviously, it doesn't have as much spring tension because it's for electronics, but it does have an Arca footprint. It has a 1/4 inch and 3/8 adapter socket underneath, so you could thread this directly to something. I think that's a really great idea. And I'm going to clamp it in and throw in this Ink Irma laser rangefinder. They have been sending stuff out to the channel lately. We've been talking about designs. This is their 1200, and I find this to be very accurate and extremely affordable. One of the better deals on the market, but it doesn't have a 1/4 inch on the bottom. It doesn't have an Arca plate on the bottom. It is rechargeable, but it lacks that underneath. So what they have is a lanyard. For me, when I'm doing really, really far shots, I might try to balance it off a bag. I might try to balance it off of a tripod, just holding it, but I would rather have something I can lock it into. So if you have the option to carry this with you, now I actually have this unit, which is much more, I guess, functional, much more steady and trustworthy for locking down distances and getting game accurately put in the reticle. So I like having the versatility of a laser rangefinder holder with this tripod, and it really fits the hunting game. Again, when it comes to hunting competition games like a Centerfire NRL Hunter, this setup could work for somebody who's operating in basically base class. If they don't have all the fancy gear for laser rangefinding and they have to run a laser rangefinder to find out target distances, which is very important in that game, this is something where, once again, this could be useful to you. The fact that it's quickly detachable from the mount. Here's a little bit of how I'm using the LuxGun Hunt today. I'm testing out some optics, doing some optical clarity and resolution testing between a couple optics, and then I also have my camera up there with a heat pack on it to keep it from dying. It's sub-zero. LuxGun Hunt can get very, very tall, which is good for me, especially when I'm running optics this way or running a camera right next to it with my monitor. It's super convenient, actually, because it's so lightweight, and then I just can't get over how important it is on cold days when it's sub-zero like this. You really need a neoprene cover. You can't just hold on to other things. It's absolutely freezing. Sometimes even with gloves on, it's quite cold. Well, in my attempt to keep this video under an hour, I'm going to be done right there. There's more I could say. I could give you all of the stats and all of the technical details, specifications. You can go to the website to get that information. I'm going to post a link down in the comments. Please use that link down in the comments to go down there and check out the website to see more about the LuxGun. There's some other products on the website that are worth looking at, but pay attention to this brand. It's really well thought out. I think the included accessories are unique, and again, this is the best deal that I can find for a true hunting tripod that's going to stay lightweight and highly capable. I'm a big fan, and thank you to my friend Max for sending it out to the channel. I've really enjoyed it, and you guys are going to see it more and more as the winter wears on and as spring finally comes closer. If you like this, maybe watch one of these videos which has been picked for you.